If you are a React developer or used React in some form, then things are going to get easier for you because React 19 is on its way and coming with so many exciting features that were previously sold by third parties, like server-side rendering, managing previous state, handling requests such as error state, pending state, data mutations in applications. So in this video we are going to talk about actions feature which is added in React 19. React 19 is yet unstable, but we can use beta version of React 19. Okay, so in this video we are going to talk about actions. So what is it that action are going to help with? Imagine this is your web application and you are making a request to server, and server is obviously going to return you some response. Now based on this response you have three challenges, right? You want to manage error state in your application. If something goes wrong, then you are going to display that in your UI. You also want to manage pending state. If data is still in progress, data is still being fetched from server, in that case you want to display some loader or something else. Also you want to update state of this application when you get new data. Now in order to achieve all these goals, previously we need to add everything by ourselves. We used to define error state and function to update that error state, similarly for pending state, and similarly for new data. But now you don't need to deal with all this stuff because everything is handled by actions. All you need to do is to make a request and everything is handled by actions in React 19. Okay, so I have created this repository and I have added each example which we are going to discuss in this video. If you want to follow along with this video, all you need to do is to clone this repository. Okay, so first you need to start this fake database. I'm using JSON server for that. So all you need to do is to type this command npx JSON server and then this flag watch and name of this input file db.json. This db.json is our fake database, and finally the port number. Okay, so this is all you need to do. Then your server will be running on localhost 3001, and next step you need to do is to initialize this application by typing npm run dev. So that's all you need to do. Alright, so let's start with very first action. Very first action we are about to get familiar with is useTransition. So useTransition provide us two things. One is pending state and second is a wrapper function. When we make an API request in our application, what's important for us is to handle the pending state of the application. For example, I have this table. When I add new record to this table and when I click this add user button, I'm making a post request to this server and I'm adding new record to this database, and that record is reflected in my table. So when I click this add user button, what's important for me is to disable this button so that I can't add same name again and again. That's why pending state is important for me. So useTransition provide us two things. One is pending state and second is a wrapper function, and we can call this wrapper function whenever we want. For example, I have this code and right now I'm in this branch useTransition. Here as you can see, I have this button and you can also see that button here and this input box. Let's add new entry to this table. Let's add new name. When I click this button add user, I'm going to call this function handle add user. Inside this function what I'm using this wrapper function. This wrapper function is coming from this useTransition. So this inside this wrapper function I'm making a post request, and based on the status of this post request, this pending state is automatically updated. When we start a post request, this pending state turns into a true state, and when that data fetching is completed, this pending state turns into false state. So based on this pending state we can manage the state of the button, whether we want to disable it or enable it. So we can manage the state of this button. Here when I click this button, if you can observe, it is going to disable for a moment. Yeah, so it was disabled for a moment when I clicked, and this new record is reflected in this table. So this is the use case of useTransition, and it could be used for various other changes in UI based on the status of the API request. Now let's move on to next, use action state. Just like use transition we were managing pending state, we can do exactly the same with use action state, but only difference here is that use action state is specifically designed for form submission. It is designed for the React DOM's form component, and it manages things like pending state, errors and API calls. Okay, so let's see that with the help of an example. As you can see right now, I'm in this branch React19 use action state, and here I'm using this React DOM's form component. An interesting thing to notice here is this action probe. Inside this action probe I'm passing an asynchronous operation. This wasn't possible with other versions of React. In React 19 we can pass an asynchronous operation. So here in this form component we can pass this probe action, and inside this action we can pass an asynchronous function, and this asynchronous function has access to the form data so that we can get access to a current state of the form. Alright, let's see how this use action state work. In this hook we are making a post request. We are making a post request to add user to our table. Okay, so based on status of this post request, all these variable changes their value. For example, when we initiate this request, this pending state turns into true, and based on that pending state we can change status of this button. We can disable that button. If there is an error, then we have access to that error. Okay, and there is one more thing, which is submit add user. This submit add user, as I told you, it has access to this form data. That's why it is passed here in this action probe. Okay, so let's see if it's work or not. Right now we have this table. Let's add new entry to this table. Let's add new name, and when I click this button, as you can see, this entry is successfully added to this table. So this is how use action state work. Alright, now let's talk about another cool feature which is added to React 19 actions. So we have this useFormStatus, which is also related to form component. So in previous segment we have seen that useActionState is used to manage things like pending state, errors and API calls. So here we had this form component. Inside form component we had three component, input, button and table. Now imagine a case where this button component lives inside a different file. For example, in this code we have that button component, and that button component is accessing this pending state. If we move this button component to a different folder, let's say we have created a folder UI. Inside this UI we have created another folder called button, and inside this button we have defined that button component. Now in that case, this button component does not have access to pending state. So we have two options if we want this button to get access to pending state. One is probe drilling. We can pass probes to this button component inside the form component. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. As you can see, I'm not passing any probes to this button component, but I'm still able to get access to that pending state. So this is where useFormStatus going to help us. So useFormStatus, child's component inside form can access pending state of API during the submission. So what I did is I created a button component in a different file, and this button component is child of this form component, and all the childs of form component can get access to the pending state of the API during form submission. So we are making a post request to add new user. During that post request, this child component can get access to the pending state with the help of useFormStatus. So as you can see, so this is useFormStatus hook, and it provides this pending state, and based on this pending state I can change status of this button. So here let's add some user. When I click this button, add user, as you can see it is still working. So useFormStatus help child component inside form to get access to the pending state of API call. So these were some methods to automate data mutation, errors and pending state.